All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our November Pitchmaster workshop. We are thrilled that everybody could join us today for 3 fantastic female entrepreneurs that are going to be practicing their pitch for really 3 remarkable and innovative companies, and very different too. So I'm really excited about today's session. My name is Lisa Friedlander. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer over here at Next, powered by Shulman Rogers. Next is an innovative and award-winning model for the delivery of legal services to startup and emerging growth companies. And we are thrilled to offer Pitchmasters every month as part of our Next Raise initiative that is sponsored by Deloitte, Silicon Valley Bank, Capital Raise, and Hungary. I see Helen, thank you for joining. You're our 3rd entrepreneur. We'll have you go last if that's okay. And I would love to introduce one of my colleagues, Hunter Haynes, who is one of our guest judges today. Hunter.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I work with Lisa here at Next. I am a startup an emerging growth company attorney. My practice primarily focuses on capital raising and employee incentive management, both domestic and abroad. Excited to be here and hear these pitches, and good to see some of your faces again.
Thanks, Hunter. That's great. All right. So with that, and since we have a smaller group, I will open it up at the very end for some feedback for our lovely, sorry. It looks like one of our other judges just joined. 1 second. I'll give him a moment. Josh.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
There you are. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. How is everyone doing?
Perfect timing. I was just going to get started and I saw that you were joining. I mentioned SVB as one of our sponsors for Next Raise and Pitchmasters, but please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Happy to be here, everyone. And thank you for letting me sit in and be part of this Pitchmasters workshop. I'm excited to give the team feedback and appreciate you all that are presenting, putting yourselves out there, having an open mind. And I just want to help you all continue to achieve your growth mindset and move your companies forward. I by no means I'm an expert, but I would say I have a fair amount of pattern recognition, working both as a startup operator multiple times over and working with thousands of companies within the innovation economy, helping them run their fundraising process as well. So I'm really happy to be a part of this, and please use me as a resource. Thank you.
Awesome, Josh. Thrilled to have you, and feel free to add your contact information in the chat as well. All right. Well, with that, Martha, I'd love to turn it over to you. Go ahead and get set up. And when you're ready, let me know. I'll start the timer.
All right, great. Thanks, Lisa. Get us going here. Everybody, are you able to see my screen?
Yep, looks terrific.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Lisa, for the introduction. I'm excited to introduce everyone to Allotherapeutics, where we inflame the tumor to deliver cancer cures. I'm Martha Sclavis, the founder and CEO. Just where we are at this point in Allotherapeutics, we are a preclinical seed stage biotech startup located in Maryland. We have full patents filed in the US and globally, and we have early proof of concept data in our animal models. And we're currently raising a $5 million seed round to get us to the key milestone of submitting an IND, or a regulatory document, to the FDA to ensure that we can start our clinical trial. Collectively, our team has over 200 years of experience in research and development, and we are focusing our expertise on solid tumors. Solid tumors currently represent about 90% of all cancer diagnoses, and checkpoint immunotherapy is the most prolific solid tumor therapy of the last decade. You may have heard of Opdivo or Keytruda, or seen commercials for them even. And they are approved in about half of all solid tumor indications. Even though they only confer around a 20% response rate, there have been some remarkable responses leading to cures. And for that reason, they're the backbone of over 800 combination clinical trials, and also why they're estimated to reach $148 billion market value by 2030. There's a problem. Only hot immune cell rich tumors are eligible for checkpoint immunotherapy. If you look at solid tumors on the whole, you have half that are hot tumors that have high numbers of immune cells, and about half that are cold tumors that are notoriously challenging to treat. Think of pancreatic, ovarian, or advanced disease. And they have immune suppressing cells. They are not eligible for checkpoint immunotherapy, and they have limited therapies and poor survival rates overall. So there is an opportunity to increase efficacy of checkpoint immunotherapy and expand the patient eligibility, especially for those with cold tumors, because as it stands now, checkpoint immunotherapy is leaving 90% of solid tumor patients behind. At allotherapeutics, our approach is to inflame the tumor, to turn cold tumors hot or hot tumors hotter. What that means is that we want to increase the number of immune cells at the site of the tumor to lead to better outcomes for patients. And the way that we are going to do this is with our lead therapy, alloimmunotherapy, termed AIM for short. AIM is a cell-based therapy that's implanted at the site of the tumor to serve as bait and lure immune cells to the tumor site to increase tumor immunity and ripen the tumor for combination therapy. We have a differentiated mechanism of action compared to other competitors, and coupled with our localized delivery, we believe that we'll have a better safety profile to lead to increased efficacy, durability, and patient eligibility, especially for those cold or hard to treat tumors. To further show you our development path, here is our early proof of concept data demonstrating that AIM can generate responses in a checkpoint refractory mouse model of prostate cancer. What that means is that this model does not respond to checkpoint immunotherapy alone. So it is termed a cold model. You can see in the top gray line here that checkpoint immunotherapy does not reduce tumor growth. However, when we combine the checkpoint immunotherapy regimen with a single dose of AIM, you can see a significant reduction in tumor growth in the purple line. And if you look on the lower right-hand side, you'll see the increase in immune cells at the site of AIM implantation over time. To further develop our therapy, we're raising $5 million to execute our 2-year roadmap to IND. The $5 million will support additional animal studies and multiple solid tumor types, as well as product development and manufacturing in support of our early regulatory interactions and early clinical trial setup, and to expand our team and infrastructure needed, all in support to submit our IND to the FDA at the end of 2025. And once our IND is cleared in 2026, we'll be able to start our phase 1 clinical trial of AIM monotherapy, followed by combination trials with AIM and checkpoint immunotherapy in 2028. At this point, that's when we'll be especially attractive to a pharma partner for exit potential acquisition. Looking past our approximately 2031 time of approval for our first indication and fast forwarding to our potential peak sales around 2035, we estimate $1 billion per year in sales. And that's not even including upside of combinations in addition to checkpoint immunotherapy. We will position AIM as a combination partner of choice. If you would like to join our journey as we inflame the tumor and deliver cancer cures, please reach out. Thank you.
Fantastic job, Martha, and well under 6 minutes. Excellent, really excellent job. Josh, do you want to kick off the feedback for Martha?
Yes, absolutely. Martha, by the way, nice to meet you and thank you for presenting. I will caveat that my background is primarily in technology and software, not so much in our life sciences space. We do have colleagues that are specifically dedicated to that. Always happy to connect you with them directly as they have backgrounds in similar areas that you're building in. But just more like general best practices and commentary on the pitch, so to speak. One, the pacing was really good. Like just, right off the bat, I think you covered a lot in a short time, but you didn't spend too much time on any individual slide. And I thought your transitions were very clear. So like kudos on just like the pacing and the general framework. One thing that I would maybe consider rearranging the order of the slides is that first slide, you kind of covered a lot of ground across a number of different topics, right? You talked about the solution that you're building at a really high level. Then you talked about like the amount of capital that you're raising. And then I think there was, one other aspect there, but like at least best practices will typically tell you to start and build the foundation of the problem that you're trying to solve. And frankly, like the pitch at a minimum is meant to draw somebody in, especially in that first slide or two, right? Like you need to help explain to them, you know, why this is such a large problem and get people really intrigued by this. So this is obviously a massive problem. You're doing something like life-saving and life-changing here. How do you make that as, I hate to use the word, but dramatic and impactful as possible to really draw someone in on that first slide? So I think that's one opportunity there, is just really start with the problem. And I think you have the good content around that. It just came a little bit later in the presentation. The other thing that I found myself asking is actually, okay, so we have these few different treatment types. One is already, you know, fairly effectively solved by providers with kind of the, I think it was the you know, heat or you know, kind of thermal therapeutic. But I didn't understand why existing providers are not able to solve this problem right now, and why, you know, your company is best positioned to do this, where existing providers, they have the distribution, the contracts, they have the infrastructure, everything like that. Like, I would love to know, what is the secret sauce that your solution has that you're going to be able to like move faster and innovate and ultimately get something to market to beat some of the incumbents that do an adjacent type solution. So that's one thing. And if that was in there, I apologize and missed it, but I think maybe that could be more clear if that's not the case. And then, yeah, I think besides just like, why are you the right team beyond just 200 years of you know, experience? I mean, I'm sure if you go and look at the large incumbents, they have millions of years of experience, if that's like the one, you know, metric that you're looking at. I would say like another educational point is like, why aren't existing treatment providers doing this right now if the scientific community at least recognizes that there's like a major gap in treatment for that? So those are just the three things that I was thinking of that, again, maybe, you know, if you're speaking with an investor in life science that is, you know, acutely educated in the space, that might be like very clear to them. But if you are running into those questions, just something to think about incorporating into your pitch. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Awesome, Josh. That's awesome feedback. Awesome feedback all around. Hunter.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Lisa. And Martha, great job. Overall, I think I'll reiterate some of the points that Josh said and then share some other ones as well. I have several life science clients, and one of the, I think, hardest parts is when you're pitching to investors. You know, I would say the amount of science that was in the presentation is what I would call like a level 2 pitch, where, you know, you've gotten a life science fund interested, and then they're bringing in their, you know, chief medical officer or somebody, or chief scientific officer, to listen to the pitch, to like basically read through some of the lines outside of the dollar signs. That first pitch to kind of larger groups or in angel investors or someone that might not understand it, you know, you want to keep it a little bit higher level of, like Josh was saying, you know, I thought your slides were good, but along with Josh, rearranging them, you want to try to avoid the duplication of slides, because you'll start to trip yourself up. So in the beginning, you know, you guys were raising 5 million, but then the slide towards the end about the 5 million, the graphic was a little confusing because I was adding up the math, and it didn't add up to 5 million, and 2, it was like part of it was under the Series A tab and part of it was under the your current raise tab. And so it was just, you know, I wasn't sure, like, all right, how's this 5 million being utilized? And like, did that comport with what you said earlier in the presentation on how it was going to be utilized? And so, you know, and I'm happy to share kind of an outline that I have found over the years that's worked really well, which is kind of like Josh had said, you know, it's like a quick overview, your problem, your solution, what the market is, why you have a competitive advantage, and then it's the go-to-market, traction, team, fundraise. You know, it's a quick 10 slide, and for anybody that didn't get that, I'm happy to share that because I know that came across quick. But it's a way to kind of avoid tripping up on yourself. I'll also note that some of the really long-term goals and targets, you may want to try to scale back a little bit. I think the 1, 3, and 5 year are okay. But
Mhm.
once we get past, that 5 year target,
Mhm.
especially on the IND, getting to 2035 and looking at $1 billion, most investors, when I'm in that type of position or I'm looking to invest in a company, I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going to happen in 7 years, but like, I guarantee this entire model is different. And so it's just time that could be spent focusing on your current needs and, more on the team, like Josh had mentioned, or more on, what you're fixing in the market space that other providers haven't, than kind of talking about, very lofty goals or what the hopes are in, 12 years from now. Other than that, though, I thought your pacing was great. And then just my final comment, on some of the transitions, sometimes it helps to have the whole slide up at one time, especially as you're moving through quickly. Because if you're kind of sliding in different words or segments towards the end, and that's like your final sentence, I only have like, I'm trying to pay attention to you, but then I also only have like 1 to 3 seconds to read that last sentence or information blurb that came in, versus I could be looking at it the whole time while you're giving your speech.
Oh, great. Thank you. Fantastic feedback. Thank you so much. And
Awesome.
feedback that I haven't heard before. So exceptionally helpful.
Awesome. And I'll just add a few things as sort of exclamation point, a couple of different things that both Josh and Hunter have mentioned already. When you're in this stage, right, you don't have much. You have a patent, it's looked like, but you really glossed over that super quick. Your team slide came up. It looked like tons of amazing logos. And I like how you said, 200 years of experience, but you glossed over that real quick. And then you have whatever traction or evidence or efficacy you showed in that one slide with the prostate cancer mice. That's it. That's all you have at this stage to show credibility that this is something that can even be done. So I'm going to emphasize the notion that at the very outset, you need to paint a really big picture. X number of people die every year from X types of tumors. Current immunotherapy, you said, is 20%. What is that number? And how, if you're able to get to market and this is going to work, how many lives are you actually going to save? And you launch with that. This is a huge, Martha, this is a potentially huge game-changing medical, innovation here. So for me, I would want you to paint that big picture, whether that's the problem you're, and Hunter's sort of description, but tell me about lives that are going to be saved right off the bat. Tell me about your patent, which is to Josh's point, like, why are you going to be the only one that's going to do this versus current immunotherapy, all those 6 other people that are already huge, why can't they do this? So and then your team. So those, and then finally, in terms of that slide that you have, the cancer mouse slide, that's got to be better. It's got to be better. You need to be able to, the image of the heated cells, that looks good. But it's like taking too long to figure out what that is. That's the only efficacy that you have to show somebody to date, that what you're talking about, what you have a patent for, what you have a rock star team for, is actually working in any way, shape, or form. So to me, those are like the big things. If you get nothing else across, those are the things that you have to get across. And who are you? Like when you talk about your team, that's great. Again, you kind of really went by it super quick. I agree with Hunter on the 2035, 1 billion. What I want to know is, are you going to take this to market, or are you going to be acquired? And what's your goal in that? Because it's a very different investment. And lots of biotech are just really, we don't want to go to market. We just want to develop, we want to prove it, and then we want to be acquired before we do that. So it will be important to know what your, your exit strategy is. $1 billion in 2035 is, I mean, I agree with Hunter. I would just kind of scoff it off. So yeah, I mean, those are sort of the big things. I personally thought for a life science pitch, you did an unbelievable job. And 90% of your slides were something that just anybody can come and understand. Your pace, your delivery, all of it. I think with a little bit of tweaking, it could be, even stronger than what it is. But I thought it was a really excellent pitch, and 90% of your slides were great. To Hunter's point about adding words as you go along, you got to be really careful both ways. If you put up a slide with a lot of words, people are not going to listen to you. They're going to try to read, to his point. So maybe the response or the solution is really not a lot of words to begin with, just some big images or big few words that are up there. If you do sort of add things as you go, that's fine, but maybe add the last item, make sure that you have enough time for the person to see. But just keep in mind that if you got a lot of busy slides, people either looking at the slide or reading the slide and not listening to you. But really excellent job, and appreciate you being here. I know you may have to drop off early, so feel free if you have to do that.
No,
any questions
thank you.
real quick, Martha, before we let you go, to clarify any of the feedback?
No, I think I have, everybody has kind of a whole gamut of slides, and I think I have several that, to the points you're all speaking to, that I can slot in and maybe pull some others out. I think, definitely acquisition is our personal end game here for this company. So how do I kind of exemplify the potential value we can add, while also not going so far as to 2035? Any recommendations?
Yeah, I think if you
there?
just literally said, that your exit strategy is you do not plan to take this to market yourself.
Yeah, I do not.
And I don't know if that's true, but if that is
no,
true,
it is. I don't plan on building a commercial
should,
organization. That's unrealistic.
Then you should just be very upfront about that. And then here are our acquisition targets. Maybe it's the same 6 companies that were in the other one, but are you in talks with them yet? Like, what are your plans in terms of developing that exit strategy as you build?
Okay,
I think that would be really all you would need to say. Awesome. Well,
thanks so much.
Really appreciate you being here. S. Levy, we'll have you get set up, and whenever you're ready, let me know.
All right. Thank you. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
All right, awesome. So I'll go ahead and get started. As Lisa shared, my name is S. Levy Parker, and I have been a hospitality vet in all different sectors for over 22 years, believe it or not. And one of the major changes that I've seen in the industry is the dissonance or the separation between the management aspect of hospitality and the ownership aspect of hospitality. And here at Evolved Homes, we are making ownership more inclusive and more accessible. All right, shifting into what the actual product is, just to give you a high-level overview. So Evolved Homes is a luxury real estate asset, and we feature a superior net operating income, or NOI, and internal rate of return that results from the outperformance sector of luxury boutique hotels. And boutique hotels traditionally are any hotel or resort with under 20 rooms. And so usually what this looks like for boutiques outperformance is that, number one, they have a higher average daily rate than non-boutiques. They outperform by revenue and by occupancy. And so what we're doing at Evolved Homes is creating access to this highly performing segment of hospitality. Now, the typical pain point that's currently in the market is that real estate investors are they're a commodity. They're everywhere. The only challenge is that they typically don't have access to purpose-driven real estate with long-term holds outside of anything that is the affordable housing sector. Thereby, they're restricted or they're barred from the premium margins that exist at the intersection of highly appreciating luxury real estate and diverse or inclusionary led real estate investment offerings. And so what we're creating with Evolved Homes is a unique value that we'd like to make universally accessible to all of our accredited investors. And so the result of this is a risk-adjusted IRR at 24% to 28%. And Evolved Homes sits at that intersection of superior returns, impact-driven real estate, and boutique hospitality. And so looking at the overall market size, we are particularly targeting accredited investors because they're remitting a capital contribution into a private equity format. And so our market size to date is 8.2 million. And so when we start at our total addressable market at 13.6, that looks at the total market of accredited investors that are US based. And then shifting over to the 10.3 million, we're actually highlighting the risk-adjusted base of accredited real estate investors who already, accredited investors who already invest in real estate. And that sits somewhere between 76%. And so we have such a robust market and an opportunity to look at how we can create further access from across the spectrum of accredited investors, whether they be a newly accredited investor or a seasoned accredited investor. And the interesting thing about this market in particular is that this market is growing at 5 percentage points year over year. So we actually have an opportunity to extend our servable addressable market. All right, so going into the business model, it's pretty straightforward. So we offer a high capital subscription model or just a high capital contribution. So at tier 1, to have access to investing in Evolved Homes offering is $50,000, which we typically have limited memberships of. Or tier 2 at a minimum of $100,000. And what makes us unique as far as the accessibility from anything else that currently exists in the market is that we can actually repurpose this tier 2. So instead of contributing a total of $100,000, we actually create that, we split it up for $20,000 per year over 5 years. And so looking at our competitive landscape, we previously mentioned affordable housing, but where else are real estate investors and accredited investors investing in real estate? So we also have fix and flips, real estate investment trusts or REITs, luxury commercial real estate deals, and Evolved Homes. And as we can see here, commercial luxury real estate comes very close to Evolved Homes offering. However, they're missing out on the advantage of higher, more consistent occupancies, and they lack that purpose-driven advantage that actually leans into that higher IRR. All right, so traction to date, starting with our proprietary market research. So I happen to have graduated from Georgetown's master's program earlier this year in the Global Hospitality Leadership Program, which I did the first ever market research on Black ownership and equitable representation in ownership. And so that we have that proprietary market research there. We have a few partners, one of them which has been previously Shulman Rogers to support us with our fund formation, the award-winning core architectural firm. We've provided and conducted market research with over 200 accredited investors throughout the DMV and throughout the US. And we have a growing community of subscribed accredited investors. Right now we're sitting at about 800, and we have expressions of interest valued at $150,000. Excuse me. Now, our marketing plan, how we want to actually get to all of our, I'm sorry, Lisa.
Livy, yeah, you're almost at 7. So can you wrap it up?
I sure can. So we'll actually take this to the investment offering. So what we're currently looking at for our initial investment is $500,000, which will help us with the initial soft costs with getting our first location produced. And just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Hunter, do you want to kick us off this time?
Yeah, sure. Great job, Lovey.
Yes, Livy.
S. Lovey, sorry about that. So no, great job. I think a couple points here. The beginning, it took me a minute to kind of figure out what the offering was or what the product was here. And I think you'll save some time and slides if you can kind of hone down on what this is. I couldn't tell at first, is this a company that's trying to increase ownership in basically different affordable housings or a different type of housing ownership, or is this more of an investment opportunity into more boutique hotels or boutique housing establishments or residencies of the like at boutique hotels. And so, I think by midway through, I understood what it was. But I think it's a really cool model. A lot of people are interested in the real estate space and as well as investing in the space. Especially with how remote work has become a very essential part of everyone's life, how these communities are going to start popping up in cities across the country and the world. So I think you could definitely dramatize that problem or what the product is early on, which will help you get right into your solution. And then from there, you could get into your market size, competitive advantage, and what your model is. And that, I think, will help your slides flow a little bit better. I think it's also when you're pitching this to people, it's make clear that it's the product itself is like the fund and the investment type platform. Some people may write, if they're trying to figure that out from the beginning, if they want a hard asset, they're not necessarily purchasing the hard asset with your company. And so you want to make sure they understand that kind of from the beginning. That way you don't lose people that may be interested, but you also don't, get through a whole conversation and then someone's like, oh, never mind. I appreciate you coming out, S. Lovey. But by the way, we don't do this type of investment. And that may not be 100% clear if you were just to share your slide deck with somebody in advance. As far as the colors and the graphics of your slide, I thought they were great. I thought that flowed really well. It represents the underrepresented communities and, what you guys are trying to fix here in that access to these types of investments for people that historically have not been able to access these types of investment. So I thought that was great. And a lot of funds will like to see that. So I wouldn't change that at all.
I appreciate that feedback. Thanks, Hunter.
Thanks, Hunter. Josh?
Yeah, S. Lovey, great job. Thank you for sharing your pitch. It's a question for you, like, who are the stakeholders that you are pitching to as part of this? Like, I just want to understand like the scope, right? A lot of folks in these forums are looking to secure, venture capital investment from that fund. So they do a certain type of, positioning. There's a certain structure and communication and format for that run through. My understanding of your model is that you're targeting all accredited investors interested in investing in that type of asset class, which, for the purposes of this is not really venture capitalists. So I just want to delineate that and make sure I'm clear on who you're targeting as part of this pitch, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So we're typically targeting individual accredited investors or households. So it may be someone who works inside of a venture capitalist firm, maybe a managing partner, but not the firm itself.
Okay, great.
Unless they wanted to purchase an enterprise package.
Yep. Absolutely. Just making sure, because although I think there's a useful pitch deck structure in general. There are slight nuances between the end, stakeholder you're looking to pitch. And in this case, it is not like a venture capital firm where there's a very clear, methodology and framework that Hunter shared in the chat that you might naturally deviate from. So that was just the first thing. Either way, though, I do have some feedback regardless from the end stakeholders where there's some best practices here, right? So one is, I either didn't notice it, skimmed through, or just it was talked about, but I didn't see a team slide anywhere. And even if it's just yourself, like you talked a little bit about your qualifications, your experience in the space, there should be an entire slide dedicated why you are going after this space and why you are the right person or why you have the right team to be successful here. And I would say that's like, in a set of asset classes where there's a fair amount of competition, or there's very similar asset classes and investment types, selling you is probably like 1,000x more important. So I would dedicate an entire slide related to your unique insight, your expertise, and frankly, in the purpose of investing, why do you have edge? Like that's what it comes down to in more professional speaking, but that's what it is. So that's one big thing. I would say that I would probably shift toward the problem statement first before just talking through the product at a high level, and I'll get to that part in a second. But talk about why is there an opportunity here? Okay? What dynamics are in the market, existing asset investment types, access for certain accredited investors, what have you, market dynamics that make this like a really compelling opportunity that where there's an opening here. That's the first thing. The second, I would think about how you position what you're calling product, right? I think there's an open question when someone goes into this pitch plan of like, what exactly are you building and how exactly can they get access to this? Because, is it a tech-enabled platform? Is this truly like a fund you're asking for accredited investors to invest in? That was only to me, semi-clear as part of the pitch. I think there's a very, very direct, clear way to state the structure of the model you're building, especially on that product slide. The other thing about the product slide is that, frankly, it looks really nice, but it only has a couple of images of kind of high-end finishes in certain commercial real estate places, and or another kind of diagram of the makeup of building on a commercial building on different floors. I looked at that, and sometimes pictures are additive to a slide and help tell a story. To me, those were just a set of images that really didn't allow me to connect what you were speaking and talking over versus the images on the slide. So a couple things I think of, are those the right images to reflect what you're stating and talking through? Or two, I'd even add a few words here and there to reinforce the big points that you're talking through over the slide. I think sometimes a few select words can be really good and additive for a slide, but there's that careful balance of, overwording things where it becomes cumbersome. I encourage you to try to find that balance with a couple of the slides where there's only images on it. So that's one other thing. And then I would say, again, a little more around clarity. I know you mentioned multiple times you're targeting accredited investors, but one of the little footnotes you had on one of the slides around the growth of the accredited investor market was that you're, I forget the exact wording, but that it was working with certain private equity firms in some capacity. And you'd have to go back. I think on that slide, if you saw that sentence again, I wish I captured it. But again, it creates questions around who are you supporting? Are you working and providing an overlay of support through your model for the PE funds or the real estate investment funds themselves? Or are you building a fund yourself and raising capital for a fund yourself to leverage the insights and expertise you have? That I still think can be just answered a little bit more clearly. And then the last thing, I think you should actually double click into that fee structure a little bit. Again, if you're raising a fund, there are very common types of management fees or set of carry on returns in traditional fund structures. If this is fairly disruptive economically to that model, you should highlight the differences between what are that fee and carry model versus what you're doing, how that might generate higher returns on a net IRR basis this way, why you're able to get away with charging those fees where it's still a viable economic model. So I think there's a lot more to go around the like pricing conversation as it relates to a differentiator. And then the last thing I'll say, one thing I'm looking at the checkboxes around like the asset comparison between those different real estate investments. And I saw the checkboxes for higher occupancy, specifically for the asset class that you're looking to, invest in and identify. Like some data around that, I think would be really helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was all right. Otherwise, that's lovely. I think it's really interesting what you're building, and yeah, I'm excited to hear more as you develop it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I appreciate those points on the clarity. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks. And I won't reiterate everything, but I basically had the same struggle, Lovey, to try to figure out what you were doing. What I came up with is you're raising a fund, basically. And you're looking for high net worth individuals to be your LPs. And then they're investing in or giving the opportunity to invest in luxury boutique hotels at minimum check sizes of, $50K or $100K. If that's not the case, or even if it is the case, either way, I think that you have to be much more clear and obvious about what it is that you're offering here. And to me, it was not, sadly. What I got was exciting piece was, okay, awesome. Wealth creation, giving people an opportunity to have investments in this type of asset that they typically don't have. 50 to 100K is still a lot of money. So it's not, you're not opening it up. You're not fully democratizing, this concept. But like, what exactly is it? What am I investing in? If it is high luxury real estate, tell me about your first hotel, right? I'm looking for X number of dollars from X number of individuals from my first fund. I'm raising $5 million, whatever it is. I have 2 hotels, 3 hotels, these markets. This is what it's going to look like. This is how I'm getting the capital. It's going to, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it just, I feel like it was really missing this being able to bring it home. I left with way more questions than answers, unfortunately. But the concept and what you're doing, I thought was super interesting and potentially have a huge impact. Agree on everything everybody said about you being the team and how are you going to do that. But either you're overcomplicating something that doesn't need to be, or it's more complicated and you're having trouble explaining what exactly what exactly you're asking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 110%. I think that with the background of, or the origin of the concept, there's a combination of different business models and different customer bases. So I was trying to make sure I was speaking to all of the customers, but to your point, just give that one story to the LP for sure.
Yeah, and the market size of accredited invest, that's not your market size. That's that slide didn't even, I don't think is even, if you're pitching LPs, then your market, you're not telling me about that as an LP. I don't care what your market size is in terms of how many investors. I care about how you're going to make money on your boutique real, how am I going to get my money back by investing in boutique real estate, which is not an easy thing to do, by the way. Are you going to buy existing hotels that are already up and running? Are you going to construct and operate brand new ones? You know what I mean? So there was just a lot of open questions for me, both in terms of what you're doing and then how I'm going to get my money back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a typical pitch. It's not, so I think I get that and why it might be a little bit confusing. But I think there are ways to streamline and just be much more concrete with what it is you're offering, keeping all of this in mind.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for the feedback.
Awesome. No, thank you. And I agree, the deck and everything looked really nice. All right. Well, last and certainly not least, Helen, whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen and get started.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you. Yep. Feel free to share your screen.
Alrighty.
Terrific.
go.
If you're able to put it in presentation mode, there you go. Perfect.
All
Go
right,
right
wonderful.
ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. So well known is tackling the problem of medical record errors and really working towards leveraging the emerging data streams and technology that's available to increase the caregivers and patients' abilities to advocate for themselves. So unfortunately, there's just a really unacceptably high rate of errors and deaths that occur due to medical record information, problems that are happening across the board. We all have errors in our medical records. And this is, again, preventing patients and caregivers from being effective advocates for themselves and their loved ones. And while technology, I do believe, can be a very important part of the answer today, our technology advancements that have happened in medical records are contributing to some of the issues in very important, meaningful ways. And unfortunately, we don't have market and regulatory forces on the horizon that are going to address this. So this is very personal for myself. Although everybody I speak to has a story, but it has affected my family in very deep ways. And also, though, on my professional side, I have 30 years in healthcare, clinical research and communications, and have seen behind the scenes of sort of some of the factors that are at play here that are creating the issues that we have. So the bottom line is that there are no consumer support solutions for ensuring medical record accuracy. All of our clinicians are responsible for contributing information to our medical documentation. None of them are accountable for the ultimate quality and accuracy of the information that's in there. And this is becoming an increasingly more urgent issue because of our population trends that we are facing, including the fact that we are going to have many fewer caregivers per patient coming soon. So this has been acknowledged by the government as a problem. There are guides out there encouraging patients to do their own QA on their medical records. Unfortunately, if you do find issues, there are just structural issues and process issues with actually getting those corrections made. And the access to information that we all have, patient portals, although we're starting to access it more, this is just a download of the information. So it's a garbage in, garbage out type issue. And so Well-Known has a solution for the immediate time frame of a patient snapshot. So this is where we put we go out and we get all of the patient's medical record information, we put it through the QA, we have it go through a clinical review, and we give them what they've asked us for, which is a simple one sheet that just really surfaces the information that they need most, that they can have with them without accessing detailed credentials to get to a portal. And this is a one-time upfront investment for getting the snapshot created, and then a recurring subscription model, because of course this is an ongoing need. So as I mentioned, this was really heavily built based upon input from patients and caregivers, as well as physicians who are facing these issues every day. So it is a patient-first approach to ensure that we stay true to what those patients really need, and be the one stakeholder really that is there alongside from the patient perspective as it relates to this healthcare and data, healthcare information and data for them. We've also heard loud and clear that there's tremendous value in the ability to have this personalized, and that they have ownership over the information, builds a great deal of value and trust. So this is a smart enterprise approach. We're making use of platform as a service technology that has come about in the last few years, as well as healthcare data interoperability, to be able to independently gather and collect this information on behalf of patients with, of course, their permissions. And it is all in the highest forms of compliance and security with high trust certifications. This is where we do our work. This is the sausage making. This is where we find the errors and the discrepancies and the missing information, and we create a clean, unified version that we then pass to a clinician for review. in an AI-assisted process, and then delivered to our clients in a secure email of a PDF, basically. And so ultimately, to have the most impact, we do want to be a B2C or a B2B, but to demonstrate this, the utility of it, the desire for patients to have this, and frankly, the value-based outcomes that can happen for patients and caregivers, we are targeting a B2C market, and specifically the Gen X folks who are in the sandwich generation, caring for parents, as well as their kids who also have issues that they're helping to navigate. And so they definitely feel the pain. There's a very clear ROI, including for the price point that's been verified. And then we do have an early interest from a very large senior services navigation company that sees this as an important market differentiator. And then we have a roadmap for where do we go from there once we've successfully demonstrated this to the market. So we are raising $1 million to build the MVP. We have a proof of concept end-to-end, showing the ability to tie these pieces together and produce the outcome. We will serve 1,000 patients in the first 24 months and generate $2 million in revenue. So in addition to myself, I have an excellent group of partners working with me on this from a growth, a clinical, and a technology perspective, as well as advisors in the startup phase, as well as the IP realm. So in summary, we will start generating revenue and saving patients' lives within 6 months of funding due to the work that we've already done on the platform for proof of concept. And we have a competitive advantage because of that work that's been done. Also, because we are the only ones tackling the real root cause of the issue of what's going on. We're a fully dedicated team. I'm working on this full time, and we have a rapidly growing urgent need that we're addressing. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Just FYI, it was well over 7.
Thank you.
Josh, do you want to kick us off with comments?
Happy to. Helen, thank you for sharing, by the way. This is a really unique problem. And again, if we're talking about just impact beyond the business, this can save lives. I think it's sort of this well-known phenomena about how medical records are flawed and result in thousands, hopefully if not millions of mistreatment and ultimately some really poor health outcomes as a result. So thank you for sharing that. Just wanted to kind of highlight that impact aspect of it. Helen, a couple things. So the first thing, I'll kind of go backwards just from what really stood out to me, but there was one where one of your later slides, when you had the explicit funding ask of you need $1 million to create an MVP. And then right after that, you said, we have a proof of concept, from what we've developed was the quote, into 6 months from now, we'll be generating revenue. What I was really unclear of as part of that then, of like, what is the progress on development as it stands today? Like, usually an MVP indicates that, right, you have something that's at least somewhat functional and usable, where there's at least like beta users on it and that have truly validated that this thing has real traction, even pre-revenue. And so like, I think, one, I actually have an open question about that. So there's probably an opportunity to clarify that. And then two, based on that, you either want to think about one, positioning as it relates to that, because usually at least VCs do not want to fund a pre-seed MVP for $1 million. Like usually what they're looking for at a certain threshold, call it $1 million and up, is that you at least have an MVP with some beta users that have validated that you're actually solving a real problem. You don't need to be making money even yet at that stage, but there needs to be some like development that has a functional quote unquote platform. And so again, I'm not sure where that stands. That could be either a positioning thing from your end, or just, again, generally expectation setting on the funding side. Yeah. That's one thing. Actually, that's more of an open question too. Like, where is development? Just so I can maybe be more targeted with that feedback.
Sure, yes, thank you. So we did a proof of concept to demonstrate the ability to do the workflow from end to end. Think of it as in, we did it for portions of the medical record, right? Now we need to do it for the entire elements of the medical record. And that's the MVP, is needing to build out the process horizontally, I guess you would say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So maybe if there's a way to clarify progress to date in specific areas, what value you've extracted or validated from beta testers, beta users, or whatever, whether it be direct feedback or some sort of outcome that they've seen, positive outcome that they've seen by using at least a sliver of what will be a larger horizontal platform is a good start. And then it actually comes down to positioning. We've developed a portion of this. They're already starting to generate value where we have conviction that this is a strong problem worth solving. $1 million, I wouldn't use the term MVP then in that regard. Actually, that's going to scare people off. Like, they're going to think I'm like, this is a completely de-risked investment for $1 million right now. If they have something just like on a piece of paper, right? Like, if you explain the actual progress there, I think that makes sense. And so I'd use different terminology than we're asking for $1 million to fund an MVP. I think that's the big takeaway there.
Okay.
So that's one thing. The other is like, you mentioned that at least initially, your end customer will be B2C, right? They will be the actual consumers or the patients. Do I have that correct?
Right. Ultimately B to B2C, but yes.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And so, but the actual pricing will be paid directly by the end, and they will be invoiced directly to the end user, the customer or the patient.
Yes, except, we're hoping that in that B2B2C that there's a B in the middle that is at least subsidizing the cost.
Got it. Okay. I think I think that's an opportunity just to clarify that, because again, when you're thinking about healthcare, there's a couple areas. One, like, what is price sensitivity for the end patient, right? What are those nodes in the value chain that either do subsidize? How do you think about insurance eligibility as well? I think that's a big question mark I didn't see in there of like, is this a reimbursement that end patient can actually file for to minimize the cost threshold that they and so that's another thing. The other one that I think is an interesting opportunity. You showed an ROI slide for the end patient, showing about like a number of, I think it was a number of hours saved through the entire process, right? I would encourage you to position that in a couple of different ways, actually, more around like the life-saving aspect of this. So X percentage reduction in likelihood of mistreatment or life impacting medical errors or something. That's one. The other thing would be if there is like a true cost component for this too, for like, is it offsetting potential follow-up procedures that need to be done, or there's an avoidance there. I think just a time savings ROI is usually, it's probably valid, but oftentimes it's one of the softer ROI sells to get somebody to like purchase something. I've seen this play out regardless of any software and enterprise or anything. It's really hard to just quantify that. So showing, I think more of a return on the benefits there. And then the last thing I would say is on the front end, when you're talking through the problem, you talked about it very briefly. You said, this has personally impacted me. If you feel comfortable sharing more of your story around that in the pitch, I would encourage that as well. The reality is, people remember stories way more than they remember statistics. If you talk about a time where this was an EHR failure that you had that created an impact in your life, or even if you project it to a story about another hypothetical person that this negatively impacted, you're, I think, going to just like hook somebody in more to like emotional response of why this is such a large problem. I would encourage that. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Josh. All right, in our last few minutes, Hunter, any final words for Helen?
No, absolutely. And I'll start front to back rather than back to front for you, Helen. No, I agree with Josh there, and I think your first 3 slides were kind of about the problem. And I think you could kind of narrow that down to 1, and that'll save some time. I think right away it was very clear what the problem was. People don't understand their medical records. They're not taken, they're not developed well, leads to misdiagnosis or mistreatment. And then I'm like, okay, like we all understand the problem. Now, what's the product and what's the solution? And I think that's a great solution. And if you're kind of in this construct right now of both B2B and B2C, it may be worth exploring, like kind of doing a slide on both. As a C customer, I'm looking at more of like, I'm about to spend $1,500, but like this could save my life and add 10 years to my life. I probably don't mind about spending $1,500 to do that. On the B2C side, on the B2B side, it's like, all right, why is spending $1,500 really worth it for me? And it's because we're going to have less errors. We're going to be able to identify surgeries or diagnose individuals with problems they do have that need treatment. And so like Josh had said, it's going to save time, it's going to save costs, from, liability insurance perspectives and costs getting sued, but it's also going to increase their revenues in certain aspects because they're going to be able to treat the other issues they have identified through having that network. So I wouldn't, those are both opportunities that I think could be addressed here. I think something really good that, just as a lawyer, I picked up on is, definitely highlight your HIPAA high trust stuff, especially if you're talking on the B2B side. I think the customer might worry about that stuff a little bit less if they're, kind of consenting to giving you their information. But the businesses are going to be very worried about that. And so just something to think about as you're pitching this to businesses. Something else that I think you should spend some more time on is definitely the team. And I agree with Josh here. Saying MVP probably isn't the right term. You kind of have a version 1 that you've tested. You're really raising funds to build out version 2 of the model here, which I think is a better way to position it than saying we this is just an idea that Helen has in her head and we haven't done anything yet, and that's what this $1 million is going towards. It's no, these are the steps that we're going to use the $1 million for. We're going to put 200 grand into developing, version 2 of the product. We're going to put 200 grand into marketing. We're going to put 200 grand into our sale, something like that really shows how that million's broken down rather than saying $1 million's going straight into version 2. And I think that will help you with your investors. And especially, I tell a lot of early stage clients right now that, when you're pitching investors at this early stage, they're investing in the team right now and the idea and the growth potential. They know your product's in this early version 1 stage, but this is your one opportunity to get funding based off of the team, the idea, and the potential. After your first round of funding, then they're like, how did you use that first $1 million? And so showing those milestones of using that first $1 million, I think will help you raise that first $1 million.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yep. This is super
Awesome.
helpful. Both of you. Thank you.
Good. Well, really excited to have had you here, Helen. It looks like you're doing something really remarkable. I think we can all relate to, and help clean up this medical system that is just falling down in so many ways. I have no doubt this product will go a long way towards doing that. So huge thank you to all of our entrepreneurs who joined us today, Martha, Helen, and S. Levy. Really excited to see your ventures, and no doubt you guys will be successful. Feel free to come back, pitch again. We always have people that do that once they refine, and it's great to see people come back and have it get better and better. Huge thank you to Josh Grohlman from Silicon Valley Bank. Thanks so much for sponsoring Pitchmasters and Next Raise and for imparting your wisdom. And to our own fabulous team member, Hunter Haynes of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers. Thank you also, Hunter, for taking the time today. Thank you all for joining. I'm sorry we're out of time to not be able to open it up, but we had such great discussions, and we really appreciate everyone attending and look forward to seeing you back in December. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Honored to be here.